All good. Alrighty, kia ora tātou, nā mai haere mai. We've got the council meeting this afternoon. It is 1 o'clock and we're just running late after ascending committees. So I'd like to adjourn the meeting and we'll come back at 20 past 1. Is that enough time for everyone? Yeah, cool. I don't think I need to move a motion. We'll just adjourn the meeting and we'll come back then. Thank you. Alrighty, kia ora team, welcome back. I've just messaged Councillor Scott, we'll just check in that she's with us in a moment online. No apologies, no public forum, conflicts, shouldn't be anything in that regard. So if we go to reports 4.1 on page 6, so it's just a resolution to include supplementary reports, and there's one or two additional documents. Can I have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Parker. Councillor Burt. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. And then the draft annual plan 2025-26 doc, I'll open up to the team to talk and lead us through. So the floor is yours.
Through your worship, hopefully you've had a chance to read the report. So just a few caveats going into this. This isn't your final decision on the annual plan. This is deciding what approach you want to take and taking it out to the public. You get to today decide to adopt the high-level stuff that sort of colours all the information that we take out to the public. Apologies, this is a bit of a sprint again, but we're trying to get as detailed as information as possible, so ensuring that any scenarios we take out to the public are reasonably accurate and that we did offer you some options to mull over. So the recommendations are up there for you to look at. The broad outcomes we were looking at are what average rates decision you want to take out to the public, adoption of the fees and charges, draft capital programme and any changes to that, and the draft financial statements. And I'll pass over to my colleague here.
Thank you. So, yes, you would have received a lot of attachments with any legislative document. Unfortunately, comes with a lot of legislative requirements. Today I thought, because there is so much content to get through, I've created a PowerPoint so we can help guide discussions around the different sections in the document. Feel free to ask any questions relating to what we're looking at the time. And we'll kick into it.
Yeah, perfect. And as we work through, we'll just get some sort of nods along the way to make sure we've got general consensus to keep it moving. But kick us on off.
Cool. So in the report, you'll note that our preferred option is 12%, which is what was planned in the long-term plan. A lot of the attachments relate to 12%, but we have also given you some high-level information relating to a 9% average rates increase. So starting off, we've got the comprehensive revenue and expense based on the 12% scenario. You'll note with a lot of the cost-saving work that has been done in council that we have managed to pull back what was planned to be a 4.8 deficit and turn it into a 2.7 surplus, which is great. Noting that that also includes your vested assets, so it's not our true operating financial position, that is what we consider the accounting surplus deficit. Any questions, thoughts, comments on the 12% high level?
The long-term plan has it at 10.4 million, and we managed to get that down to 2.8 million, which is driven mainly by some changes to revenue, which is the downlands. There's been an increase in downlands. The subsidies and grants, and that's mainly NZTA, and also finance revenue. We're holding cash, slightly more cash in the interest rates, slightly more cash than we had previously anticipated. And then on the expense sides, we've pulled the expenses back from 58 to 55. Interest has gone down 5. And also the depreciation's gone up 2. So those two, there's a $2.6 million gain in revenue and a gain of $5 million in expenses. That gives us 2.8 deficit at a 12% increase. So quite a lot of work done there. This 2.8 does exclude any savings from a restructure, because we can't put that in there because we haven't confirmed what the structure will look like. Then if you go to the next slide, this is the 9% option. So effectively the expenses are the same as the 12%, but your revenue's dropped, and it's actually pretty much in line with the LTP. It gives you a $5.5 million deficit, operating deficit. Then when you take into account vested assets, it gets to just a break even. Again, any savings from a restructure are not included here. Now, if you look out the next 2 years, in our LTP we had 15, 12 and 12. Obviously, if we can keep a tight rein on our cost structures, then next year I don't think you'll need to be increasing by 12%. Again, it depends what happens to valuation of our assets. And if you go with 9%, again, I don't believe you need the 12% in the third year neither. It's probably sitting in single digits. But what it means is we're going to have to be very mindful of keeping our costs under control. The subsidies for the theatre and museum are not included neither. So that's another lot of cash that we will get coming in.
Yeah, Michelle.
At a high level, great work on the reduction in operating expenses. That's fantastic. What worries me the most is interest rates. And I wonder how much exposure do we have there, or how much hedging do we have? Like, is it 50% of the debt, or 75% is hedged? Because, and I don't really need an answer now, but my point is, you just said if we keep our costs under control, next year should be single-digit rate rise in there. What if the world goes crazy and all of a sudden our interest rate's back up 10%? We will not have a single-digit rate rise. That is my problem. Like, I think we've done a lot of work to get to a reasonably acceptable position, but half of that has been because interest rates have been our friend.
Two things driving that. One is interest rates, but also our level of borrowing is not as high as we had anticipated. So, and that's driven through the delivery of CapEx in 24-25 is sitting around, the forecast is around the 55% mark. Now, why we're not getting 100% is the museum and theatre, and also a bit in Claremont. You'd have to be real optimist to think interest rates are going to climb in the current climate, because at the moment the OCR is going down. Our interests are aligned to OCR. I don't believe that you would only put the interest rate if your inflation started taking off. If your inflation started taking off, that'd start lifting. Potentially, if I put my economic hat on, I'd be going, we're actually in a bit of a downward trend for our economy, so they're going to want to stimulate the economy by keeping those interest rates down. So I think we are actually okay. I think in the out years, yes, we might have a risk there because our borrowing would have increased, but again, there's the out years.
I agree with you at a philosophical level, but that is not how it played out after COVID. And interest rates just shot up, even though you could argue that the economy needed a kickstart.
Councillor Piddington.
I guess for me the focus is this time, because you're an optimist, the Chief Executive, because every time I've sat at this table we've come out with a number for next year's rates, and it's never been that number, and it's never been below that number. We find there's another curly one round the corner. I mean, we haven't even revalued our buildings since, 2005? that's going to happen and that's going to have a massive impact. So while I'm pleased with what we're doing and it's good work, we're being cloistered by the fact we're not doing stuff that should be done if you're running it properly. And to that point, I think we need to make a note somewhere that we realise we haven't revalued since 2005, because what happens is you get someone write to the paper and say, those guys around the table have no idea what's happening. We do, but we didn't note, we saw it coming, if that makes sense. So it's to protect ourselves. So another council, be it November, comes in and goes, why aren't they revalued, you know? So I think we need to be honest with what's coming as well.
You need to be careful what you wish for. I just read an article here on Stuff Today. Inflation expected to rise for the first time in 3 years.
Look, feel
Shouldn't
that.
subscribe to those AI
It's just
sites.
Geraldine, it's just the growth out of Geraldine. I think it's a...
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, Stace, jump in, mate.
Mr. Trainer, just wondered if the subsidies and grants on NZTA funding, are we doing anything above and beyond in these figures?
You mean in the revenue side? Or the
Yes, like
expense side?
like, you know how we sometimes do $2 or $3 million over and above our the subsidy that comes in, or are we
So-
just going to do what we're funded for?
No, it depends on what percentage you decide to go over above. So historically, we've been funded at 51%. We are going, so our share of the funding is 49. We're going above that. And that's a conversation for this meeting later on. So we'll show you that later on. So inside these forecasts is that higher spending level.
Thank you.
What nods do you want at this stage?
I think at this stage, just letting you know what's going on.
Cool, righty, keep us going. Everyone okay? Any further questions at this point? Yeah, I mean, interest rates though is a interest one, and saying that outside of what Donald Trump does tomorrow, yeah, the trend is down, and that's the problem. It's global uncertainty, isn't it? But I guess also if interest rates were to increase, then we would again relook at our annual plan around what we are doing, delivering across every line again, I expect.
My point is we possibly need to revisit our Treasury policy and make sure that we feel comfortable with the amount of hedging we've got in place, given we're potentially at the low of a cycle, where you probably hedge more than what you normally would.
We pay the corporate bankers to give advice on that, don't we?
Yeah, I know we do, but we all just sit in there, receive a note and don't ask a lot of questions. And so my challenge to councillors is that the next time we receive that, we need to review the Treasury policy and make sure we are comfortable with it.
But the corporate that advice, we all questioned that 3.5 years ago, didn't we? And knew it was going to be wrong, but it was what we had to adopt. So, yeah. Righty. Keep.
Can you click the screen? Perfect, there we go. So this breakdown here is basically at the top, it is what our LTP expenses were set at, and at the bottom, it is what we have ended up with due to increases in some sections, but also a lot of decreases in other expenses. Happy to take any questions on any of the specific items.
I guess we're all happy with decreases, obviously. Can we have some quick explanations of the increases from the LTP?
That'd be good. What was the,
The board fees that you approved?
yeah, and what else? 150?
So that's on you lot.
Yeah. No, that's right.
The audit fee is lining up more with what we're getting charged.
Yeah, it is, yep. So
What we're
that's
getting
more in line
charged.
with what we've had the last couple of years.
And I'm going to hand over to Andrew to talk about all the rest, because we're all in urban.
Sorry, does that ED line up though with what we've got in the paper this afternoon? 150k extra,
I think it does.
does it?
Can I just make an ironic comment, is that so we've got a massive increase in audit fees compared to our annual plan that the auditor signed off on.
We
And
we negotiated,
We have no choice who we use.
and we negotiated a fee structure that would not change. But,
It always
God,
changes.
oh, yeah,
So a little bit, and we have had a conversation about getting a lot more efficient with the annual report, and finance is getting better and better, and I'm sure we can do better than that.
I can answer the financial services one too. So that one is quite a large increase in postage fees, which has quite a huge impact when we are doing things like by-elections and also local government elections, and general postage too for rates, which is why we're pushing to get more people by email.
And to be honest, that's got to be one of our strategies, is get away from post. It's going to, how much a letter?
It's close to $3 a letter now.
$3 a letter.
And plus there's the cost of actually printing and sticking things in envelopes as well. I mean, a nice example of that is we've just started a campaign that if you move to e-billing for your dog registration, you can win a free year's dog registration. So I mean, stuff like that actually sounds quite nice to people.
can we, what's the rules around legally? If we just choose a point in time that at this point we're not going to post a bill, is that possible?
We'd have to check it because we are sending an invoice and we don't have contact details for everyone. The big problem is that we don't have a centralised database of email addresses like we do with the name and address register.
Yeah.
So we couldn't send our invoice to people, so therefore they wouldn't have to pay it.
Yeah.
But we can use various methods to kind of incentivise people. And to be honest, for the amount we would save, technically we could pay someone's rates for a year if they signed up for. I mean, it's that sort of thinking you could do. Possibly not yours.
I guess my question is, look, there's a lot of 250s and they're not probably difficult to explain away, but the bottom line's 5 point whatever it is million, I can't see it. And that's a lot in year 2 of the LTP. We only decided this, you know.
Year 2 of the LTP. 2 of the LTP at 58. So we've got it down to 55 through these changes.
Have you addressed, because a lot of those are internal charges, they're all
No, not internal.
land
All external.
transport, people and capability, internal charges, IT charges?
No, these are those departments not
Yeah,
spending as much.
I know they're those departments. So why are those department heads not ensuring that those budgets are being met? And therefore, obviously, we're not talking about them.
But those top ones are reductions. They've reduced their budget.
Oh, they're reductions.
Yes.
I thought that was what we were over.
No, they're the reductions they've made to their budgets.
Right.
And the bottom ones are the increases we've had to make to budgets, mainly for a whole host of reasons, like the increase in postage.
What is the project billing adjustment of, is it 336 at the bottom?
That's the capitalisation of staff time against projects. So then it, yeah. And
I'll try to. So basically, this is all the capital works that staff do, and now we are capitalizing it when the project gets capitalized. So we're just trying to increase. We have increased it because we had not budgeted proper, if that makes sense.
Because they didn't have it before and now we're capitalising expenses.
Yeah, but if we're capitalising expenses, it should be coming off your overheads.
So with project capitalization, it gets linked to our personnel salaries and wages, so it gets out from there. If
adding more to the project, aren't we taking less?
No, I think,
I don't understand
think
that.
what's happening here is we've looked at our project capitalisation and we've increased the amount of staff we're going to capitalise and reduce the amount of expenses, because some of the expenses are true expenses. That's why that's gone up. So we've got expenses that we've been capitalising. It's not real. We shouldn't have been capitalising them. We should have been expensing them.
But double-sided accounting would suggest if one goes up, one goes down.
No,
I'm failing to understand
No,
that.
because the project, the cost that we pay for supplies and that goes straight to the project, not through an expense code. So some of them have been going through expense codes and then getting capitalised. This is OPEX, yeah.
District plan review, 400K.
Yep, you had a debate, you had a discussion this morning about that, and yes, the budget last year is less than we'll be spending this year on our district plan.
How do we get it so wrong?
Well, it's not wrong, it's actually timing issues. So this year we're spending less, we're under budget, but it's moving to next year, so we've got a budget for it next year.
Got the financial services there, Nigel.
Yep, we just talked about those, that's mainly postage.
These modern times, why are we not like everyone else and gone to email?
I've just talked.
And even our accountancy systems, I mean, surely it's about having the right systems.
Yeah, we just discussed that. So at the moment, we don't have everyone's email addresses, and that is a project that we really, really should get moving.
also in financial services, the bid gets expensed through that line as well, so that's inflated it by $138,500.
Attracted me as I got down to the rate sample properties, and that really upset me, which I'm waiting for that to come.
Just like to point out too that some of the increases, quite a few of them are basically increased compliance costs as well. You know, you got $60,000 to $70,000 from Taumata Arawai now, which is a levy on us. We have to pay it. We've got a lot more monitoring fees that we have to pay to meet compliance, and particularly in the stormwater area. We've also got a lot of more waste levy money that's come in, and we have to have the expenditure on the other side of the ledger. So it clouds it a bit. So the increase in waste management, for instance, is more fully funded by government effectively, but it shows up as an expense in our accounts.
The increase economic development, 149,000. Can someone explain that to me?
Yep, so that was the additional funding grants that you agreed to in the LTP with their statement of intent. So we've kept that in there for now because you've made no further decisions on what you're planning to fund that activity.
I'll just jump in. The increases look like 98 that I can see. Obviously, there's director fees. There's something else in the economic development, and there's 60K attached to cruise that sits in the tourist one. Yeah.
Okay. You know, it's just hard to remember, and I'm thinking.
Cool. Any further questions? Or yep,
They
Michelle.
don't have budgets for it.
Yeah, I know. It'd be good to see this, and I know this is asking the impossible, but as I was working through all of this, it would have been good to understand what is timing, like the annual plan, and we had budgeted for it last year, and what is actually increasing in cost. Yeah, just, I don't suppose we can do that before we finalise it in June, or, I don't know. Don't worry if it's too hard. I'm just saying in future, because those timing things are some big numbers like the annual plan. You know, we don't really see what we've saved because we haven't spent it this year.
Yeah, so probably looking forward to the final adoption phase of the annual plan. We can basically show you the full ins and outs so you understand what moved because of timing, what moved because of cost escalation, what moved because of interest. Yep, we can do that breakdown.
I guess part of it, we celebrate we've made a saving last year, but we need to be clear, actually, some of the saving ain't a saving, we've just moved it across. That's what I'd like to be more.
It's not a champagne saving, it's just a...
How you do it, but you know what I mean? You think, oh, we've made a saving this year, great. Then it pops up.
Well, not really, because, you know, there's a $3 million savings overall here. But fair warning, the top two are timing issues. The top two up there, your theatre and your
Might just check in with Councillor Scott online and see if she has any questions.
No, I'm all good.
Perfect. Okay, so moving into the capital program, this one was quite the headache to try and, I guess, communicate the ins and outs, the rephasing, the ups and downs, what was brought forward, what was pushed out, what was reduced due to expected spend. This is an overall table based on all the activities. Happy to take any questions on this, but yeah, a lot of the saving was in what I affectionately call the three elephants, which was the theatre, the stadium and Claremont, which we know have all been rephased to reflect their expected project timelines.
Why'd you choose elephants?
Purely based on the budget, the size.
Just the large size of them.
Just on the roading and footpaths, is that just due to the changes in funding? Is that what that is?
Yep, so that is the first cut. There are further options to some of that, but today we'll be mainly looking at the OPEX because that is what directly impacts on the rates. The capital is generally loan and depreciation funded.
So that's what's affected that?
Yes.
Funding?
There have been some savings in there, yeah.
An increase.
Yeah, that's an increase. Yeah, for 5 mil.
Oh, actually, no, that also includes the additional ground resilience funding that we didn't have programmed in.
Which means we spend more.
So we are spending more, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
In some areas, yeah, but that capital program is not fully funded by NZTA, no. There are footpaths, cycleways that are included in there at this stage. That we have, we're maintaining the current level of service. The question will be if you want to reduce that, do you have to accept a reduced level of service? Yeah.
What is the recreation and leisure one?
So Rec and Leisure, that includes the stadium and also the theatre also sit in that category too. Hence why they've got a very big variance. So this slide I have pulled out into basically the categories that are also in the council report, showing which ones are moving from the current year to 25-26, which ones will then naturally be affected moving from 25-26 into 26-27. There are some options for additions, which we currently have in the program, but they are still obviously up for discussion because it is draft. We have a couple of projects that we brought the spend into 24-25 to progress projects or complete projects. There is one project where we have brought some funds forward into 25-26 from 26-27. That is for the dog pound, so we can get started on the design and consenting work associated with that project. So come 26-27, we can hit the ground running. And then also there are some options for reduction to be considered as well, noting that the Community Board's strategic plan funds are loan funded, but they're not actually a capital project for council.
I just had one question around Orangi Stadium equipment, $1.1 million. What is that?
So that is the separate line item that totals up to the total Orangi Stadium project fund. They kept it split out because originally I think there was potentially going to be some community buy-in on that line. Now it's likely going to be moved in together, so we've just rephased that to match the project timeline.
It would be good because it just raises questions. It looks as though we're buying $1 million worth of
Yep.
equipment.
Parks in-house additional vehicles, well, that's a no-brainer. If we're bringing parks in-house, we're going to have to have vehicles. Parking plant purchases now, there'll be a business case coming, a strong business case to say we've got to get rid of the mushrooms, we've got to get rid of some of the current way we collect parking money and replace it with something more modern. Unless we do that, you're stuck with low parking fees and you need to modernise it. We've got one council who talks about the airport a lot. Again, that's second-hand equipment and it needs to be replaced. Cycleway implementation, again, do you do this or not? Roading variations, various. The stream enhancements, urban water plant and Te Moana. So there's quite a list there that needs to be thought through.
Yeah, I'll just say with the urban water plant renewals, that is, to me, is high priority. The risk there is a boil water notice across those communities, and that is quite high. And when there's a boil water notice, industry shuts down. So.
The Te Moana, has that not been factored into the current budgets within that?
The Te Mata, that's just the reticulation renewal. So it's just going, we've got a lot of old mains out there that need replacing. It could be pushed another year. You're just running more risk there or potential blowouts. Yeah.
Jump up here, Andrew. I love you guys.
Sorry, Andrew. Just to clarify on some of these, the Te Moana one was a error in the LTP where it was all sitting under consultants, not capital. So it's a rejig of that, and it's also a reduction down. So that's where, so there was no line. Urban water as well, it had been zeroed out as it had been assumed it was part of Claremont. It's actually all the other urban plants like Geraldine, Temuka, Pleasant Point. Yep. So it's still ongoing, but it was just where they were sitting.
What's the Tamata Kahu stream? Which one's that? Is that the Temuka one?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, that's tied up with our stormwater resource consent. Yeah.
Yeah. So the consents are in an awkward stage at the moment. So we've, I'm trying to remember the correct word for it, but we've contesting what was issued going through, so it'll go to a hearing. But when they're not that far away from coming through, so we'll need to start cracking on into that next year.
Does that, what do you mean by stream enhancement? Are you talking about plantings or are you talking about straightening it or?
It's a mix of planting, erosion protection for where we're discharging into the stream. So there's a bit of mix of that. There's removal of some obstructions that are in there to go through to increase the carrying capacity with some planting and stuff along the banks as well.
Can we use some of our biodiversity budget to pay for the planting?
So we're not really considering them, because what I'm hearing is that they have to be done anyway, aren't they?
What about the road, and can we learn a bit, because that is the chunkiest one up there. So oh, is that coming next?
Yeah, so with the capital program too, because it wasn't set in the LTP, that's why we bring any additions to you, explain what they are, so then you can consider them for particularly anything that might spark a lot of community interest. Then you can take that to community, get their feedback on whether they think it's a good investment, and then also have time to consider before adopting the final capital program on hopefully the 24th of June.
Sorry, just one question, and again, in and out one. Cycleway implementation 200k. What projects are they?
Well, Council adopted the active transport strategy, and the projects were all listed in there, so it's just basically working through that list.
This is where I have a problem, Andrew. When we had lots of money, we had a cycleway strategy and we bought into it. Now we get hit over a head with it. In this current economic environment, should we review that strategy?
It's not a case of reviewing the strategy, it's more about just slowing it down. So yeah, that's certainly one of the discretionary items you've got, is that 200k. It's not, no one's really going to miss it over if you delay it by 1 year.
Yeah, that's kind of my point, and this is where we fall out in the community, is we say we've got no money, then out of the blue we'll be doing a brand new cycleway somewhere, that people say, well, how's that a priority? Oh, because we agreed to it,
Speak about this just last week, didn't we? We spoke about the site going from 500,000 down to 200. Is that right?
Different. We're talking about the contestable stuff, which will probably come last week.
And in the little right-hand bottom corner, there's a couple of small ones we're saying maybe you want to think about reduction. Community board strategic funds, rather than 70k each, 50. And roading environmental renewal, someone else can talk to the 255k, I'm not sure what that is. Do you know what that is?
Environmental renewals, I think, is probably reducing the amount of footpath resurfacing. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, there'll be some drainage work among that as well.
Yeah.
Is that there to trick us?
No, it's there to test you.
There's probably a footpath line and an environmental renewal line. Nah. It's an interesting title.
I thought it was plants. Next slide. Right, so this is the roading operational funding options. So as we've seen from a previous workshop, there are a number of lines where the funding from NZTA has changed significantly. So, and they've had a realignment of their priorities, and that has realigned funding. So their higher priority now is potholes and some of the bigger projects, as opposed to environmental maintenance, bridge maintenance and so forth. So here are the differences and the potential proposals. So we need to, these are still included in the current annual plan financials, is that correct?
Yep, so the middle column there that says current plan 25-26, that is what is in the budget today, and which feeds into those higher financial statements that you've received. The further reduction column is an option to obviously further reduce, and LTP 25-26 is what we had planned for before obviously the NZTA funding was confirmed in October last year.
Yeah, so we have made some substantial cuts already, which we don't believe will impact the level of service significantly, but the next step is, dropping that level of service.
Can someone please explain the road safety promotion? And I want to know how much we get from NZTA.
So I know this one because I've been debating this. So we get 111,000. Why? No, just NZTA funding, 111,000.
I've got a number for you already, Nigel.
Hang on, let me finish.
Ah.
Waimati and Mackenzie, that 111 covers the three councils. So Waimati and Mackenzie have also tipped 100k in to lift the amount they get, and so it's about 211. The total cost is about 540, so our share is about 300k.
Back to my question, what are we doing for that? What is that?
So
I mean, I probably know, but
2 staff members and about $240,000 worth of programs, of all sorts of programs.
Of which, 60,000 is also as a contract with the DHB to provide school travel planning as well. So that's part of it,
Yeah.
240. Yeah.
Part of the 240.
So
So
when-
effectively, I've been challenging LTU to say something's got to give here, because in my opinion, the revenue should be around the 300 mark. The 111 will match that, and the 100 from the other 2 councils. So it's about 300k. So I've challenged them to say, how are you going to cut your cloth to match that?
I'm with you 100%. I mean, when we get 60k from someone to do something, do we measure that in any way, or do we just throw that in the pot? You know what I mean? Do we have a staff member at 30k and 30k with their expenses, or does...
How the emphasis come on this, we have 2 road safety officers. In my proposal, I had it going down to 1, so this is all this to ahead. Now, they either keep 2, and they're going to have to drastically remove the programs, reduce that considerably, and I think once you do that, you only get about 60,000 left for programs, so it would have to be markedly reduced, and we'd have to do more ourselves. Now, the reason why I say that is you've got the staff, you've got you've got the vehicles we've got to run, and then I think there also should be a little bit of contribution to OVET because you've got to pay them and all the rest of it. Then it leaves about 60 to 70,000 for programs.
So the things that would stop, we would basically have to not do school travel planning. So that would have to, we'd break the contract there with DHB. Speed feedback signs that you see up around the place, that would have to cease completely. You know, these are measures that we do, and a lot of the advertising, we'll just have to be a bit more innovative and do that through our own websites, etc. Yeah.
We must spend a fair bit on advertising on that sort of stuff. It's in every week.
Yeah, but having said that, the awareness of road safety has increased markedly, and we do measure that as part of our road user survey, and it actually is a long-term plan performance measure, KPI.
Andrew, one would think that the road safety plans is a higher priority to do rather than advertising.
Well, the road safety action plans include advertising. It's part of raising community awareness, and that's just one mechanism. We also talk to a lot of groups. We attend sort of agricultural shows. Mackenzie Fair will be up there. So there's that direct liaison with the community as well. So it's a hard one. It's behavioural change. I look at it like smoking, anti-smoking campaign. It's intergenerational in many ways, and it's a very slow burn. Yeah.
But anti-smoking, it's a government thing. I mean, we're getting tough here, and it's 1 or 2 ads I see when I go to the movies. Road safety and one advertising the theatre. So we're just spending too much, because I couldn't believe it.
And I was trying to say that instead of breaking a contract with the DHB for 60,000, surely we can make that meet, but lay off some of the other advertising that's over and above that.
Yeah.
We would have to reduce our programs, yes, no doubt about it. That's just one aspect of it. The advertising would definitely drop, as well as a number of other things. But
The 60,000 going to wave, and it's actually a very small subset of our community, whereas somehow we've got to get the reach to the whole community. I think there's a difference there.
Pete, and then we'll go to Stu.
It's just one of those things around a moral obligation, because how much is the value of one life? You know, like all those things, human nature dictates it. Unless things are in your grill all the time, you know, you have a tendency to say, and we all live in this world, hey, it's going to happen to someone else, not me. You know, so what is the value to our community to have that and save a few lives, as opposed to we going, look, let's just chop all that. It doesn't mean anything in ratepayers.
Is it a council responsibility or a government responsibility?
That's the key, and that's why we're getting some funding, and so that's, yeah.
And I'm happy to spend the funding we get.
Yeah.
I'm not happy to spend the 300k we are tipping in.
Yeah.
I think the philosophy is probably similar to the NZTA subsidy in that it's both local and central have some buy-in, but it's about keeping people out of the grill, isn't it, Pete? Anyway, I don't think we're necessarily the experts on what should and shouldn't be in this budget. I don't think we should just necessarily pick a figure. I know there's some savings being done or being looked at through that consultation and that process, and I'd probably rather...
Well, I took the CE's number.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'd
Who's looked
rather
at it?
staff give us some, advice.
Staff.
Yeah. No, that's, yeah.
Can I just clarify, right back to the start?
Yeah.
The further reduction, is that you're going to reduce 1.15 million by another 708, or is that we've got some more reductions and so now we're going to spend 708?
No, so what we've got there, so the current plan column, that is what is in the budget. The further reduction would be what the funding attached to that activity would then become. So we'd go from 1.15 to 708, and the impact relates to the further reduction. It doesn't necessarily relate to the current plan figures.
Christmas decorations, that number align. LTP was 220. Our current plan was 318. Why did it?
Yep, I can help out a bit with that because I had Susie beside me for an hour this morning, which was great. So this one here, originally we thought the budget was enough. Then when the Angels went up over Christmas time, we recognised that actually there's quite a lot of repairs and maintenance that need to be done to those Angels, hence why the plan went up. Now we're saying if we don't do the Angels with the repairs, maintenance, installation, all the traffic management and costs associated with that, we can pull that back to 117.
Also note that we have purchased additional decorations as well. We've got a big Christmas tree now, and it also includes out in the provincial areas, you know, it's Geraldine, Temuka, and Pleasant Point, and you know the number of Christmas decorations is increasing there. So some of it is growth.
Just to be 100% clear.
We need some direction from you guys on these items, because, you know, otherwise the current plan is the plan. Now, if you think the current plan is the amount you want to spend, that's fine. But if you want to help save some funding, which would you give on any of them?
Right. Yep, go, Gav, and then we'll...
I'm just, all I'm worried about under environmental maintenance, obviously the no snow clearing, minimal ice gritting, no graffiti. When you say no snow clearance, is that what, footpaths, roads, the whole lot? There's no snow clearing across the board? That's at the 708k mark? We'll be doing no snow clearing?
Probably be only on major roads only. Yeah, we
Major
wouldn't do
roads
any
only.
rural roads, no.
So nothing on the shingle roads clearing or anything like that?
Definitely.
So we've been lucky, there's been no snow lately. And the ice gritting, minimal ice gritting. So when you say minimal ice gritting, is that just places that have either lots of traffic or on a hill, or what does that look like?
That's correct. Again,
Pretty
it will
much.
be hierarchy focused.
Yeah.
And we'll be just addressing the roads with the highest number of traffic volume.
The truck gets to Temuka, but not Geraldine.
Yeah. It'll be risk.
They never get snow anyway. You guys never get snow. You don't know what it's like. It's that white stuff that falls from the sky. And the graffiti removal, I mean, it's known that more graffiti that doesn't get removed, the worse it gets over time. That could be quite profound for the town, for the city in the future, couldn't it?
Well, you make it into art.
Yeah.
I
acknowledge it.
Alrighty, okay, so do we support any reduction on the top line?
So bear in mind, this is also spraying and garden beds.
I know this
as
is all
well.
the stuff that I get rung up about. I don't support any reduction.
It's in there.
And
What
also,
with Gavin on the no graffiti, the town would look terrible if we didn't remove graffiti. So what is the cost to that each year?
Oh, sorry, I don't have the figures in front of me. It's highly variable. Yeah, that's what I know, but yeah, we could find that out, that number out.
But you must know, is it 50K, is it $5,000? You must have a
We've just increased
some
that
idea.
in the last wee
Is it
while.
200,000?
I'll say we're around about 50,000 a year, I think, so ballpark.
It's a demand-driven
What was that? I missed that.
50K. So you raise your hand if you support
sorry,
reduction
can
in
I
the top.
just
Yes.
interrupt? So the purpose of doing this was really when we get to the consultation section to basically get your direction on whether you want to quantify what the options are to the community and the dollar amount and the impact.
Yeah.
Rather than,
So you don't
So
want to do it
kind
now?
no, if that's
Giving
okay.
us indications of the options that you're comfortable with are the most useful in this, because there's no point in us taking it out to the public and saying, stop gritting the roads if you're going to get a
Okay.
community uprising and then.
So if you could just give us direction on what ones you would like community feedback on, that would be
Oh,
really
they can give us.
Why don't we go hard and get the feedback?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with the feedback. Yeah.
Because just put it all out there and get the feedback. Because we've got to couch this that we need to save some money, and if everyone wants to keep their little bit, there is no saving.
Yeah, so what our thoughts were in the current outline of the consultation at the moment was we've got basically a rough general idea of what could be cut at an activity level, saying these are the things we could stop doing
Yep.
because they're not funded how they used to be. The question for today for you was what ones do you want to look at with the community, and do you want to quantify those with dollar amounts to basically help the budget forecasting from
Yeah,
here on?
I want people to know what it's costing us,
Yep.
because it's no good say, take away the Christmas lights, because everyone will go, no, don't do that. But if you put a figure in and say, this is what it costs to put the Christmas lights up, for example,
Yep.
the feedback could change dramatically. It may not, but,
Yeah, and that was what we were kind of hoping
yeah,
for
no,
today.
perfect.
Get some
Yeah, I know, Andrew, but you know what I mean?
Will we also, in that document, so using road safety as an example, so what we're saying in the document is we could cut that further and propose to spend only 304,000, if I'm understanding that right, but we need to say how much of that we get funding for, or is that after the funding? Because
So we could put that in as well and say this
We-
is what the
we
NZTA portion is, this is what we provide, give us your thoughts.
100% have to do that, because I'd go just cut the whole bloody lot, but then you get told, but we get 200,000 from all these other places.
The approach we're taking with transport operational stuff is that the government priorities have changed. Do we need to shift to change with them? Should we just be matching the stuff they fund versus?
Yes,
Yes.
but we need to be very clear about that in the document so people understand of that 304, we receive 150 or 200 or whatever it is. So the cost to us is only 100 or.
That's easy to
Remembering that the document has to be high level, we can't, as much as Steph would love to, we can't present spreadsheets to the public.
And but you can put it in the commentary. My point is, if you go to the community, similar with the Christmas lights, and go, shall we cut 304,000 of road funding? A whole lot of people will go, yes, not understanding that actually that only costs us 100 grand and we're delivering, three times the amount for that.
They are only providing context to you as the decision maker at the end of the day, though. So this isn't a consultation in the form that anything binding on you. You just take what they say and then make the decision yourselves.
I get that, but the feedback we will get is cut that, but then we're getting that feedback without the community having all the information. Yeah.
Yeah, we can tease that out.
Yep, okay then, so we're all comfortable with all that being included? Yep, cool.
Okay, perfect. So now we are going to look at the summary of the rate sample properties. So you'll receive the big spreadsheet with all the big numbers. This is basically the summary saying what property, where it is, and what the average increase is for that property based on the 12% increase. And then the next slide is the 9. So each year with rates, there is generally one particular property in one particular area that is very happy with how the model worked out their calculation, and there's one who's generally very unhappy. So yeah, it's not, yeah, it doesn't work out as 12% for everyone. As we all know, rates are very complex depending on whether you have bins collected, what water scheme you're connected to. The unders and overs are all very different, but yeah.
I think we need to note that somewhere, though. This is just a very broad sample. I'm with Mr Booth. Mine went up 20%, so did the neighbours, who came marching over with their rate bill and said, you said X. So we need a disclaimer.
Yeah, we do. We describe it as a single, this is a single property in Timaru that is worth, how much is it worth? 260,000. So if you've got a land value of $260,000 in Timaru connected to waste and water, normal size bins.
Yeah. But that's what I'd like to see, because you've got land value of 400K, you realise that actually isn't the number you will land on.
Yeah.
And residential is probably the most accurate of all of them, whereas commercial and primary are pretty hard.
I think commercial and primary understand that, whereas your average householder doesn't.
Is there an example here of a commercial property such as something from the main street? Because, you know, last year it was 21%, plus the bid, that was 25%. And here you are, it's showing 15% in Timaru. Have you actually done the exercise?
Mm-hmm. Yep, so I've got a sample property in front of me, which is also attached in one of the spreadsheets. So I've got a commercial property that has a land valuation of $630,000. The average increase for that property is 15%. So the total increase in dollars over the year is $1,635. The weekly increase was $31. The weekly cost overall now would be $246, and the daily cost would be $35.
The shops are not worth 600,000, the land up the main street. Can you give me something in the main street?
That's the only sample property I have got now, but we can supply a main street property if that is beneficial.
Something wrong with the system, because the numbers were so askew, and I'd hate to think someone needs to look into it and review how those numbers are coming about. So, I mean, have you done, in perhaps Michelle's case then, have you actually done a rural property?
Yep, so there's a whole category based on the 12 and the 9%. So rural, we've got residential, commercial and primary all in the spreadsheet.
What's the rural property gone up? Example.
Residential, the commercial or the primary?
Rural.
Okay, so that one on average has gone up 16%.
Based on 2 points.
2.5% last year, was it? That same property? What did it go up last year?
Can I help you out a little bit, Steph? This
That'd be
year we
great.
won't have a change in land values. Last year we had a change in land values, and that skewed some of the outcomes, I believe.
All ratepayers know is that they were told a rates increase of 15% and it was 25%.
We make
And
it
then
clear
other
in the
people
document.
only paid 2.5%. And so
1.2
I do
actually.
not want to see the same thing happening. I want someone to look into that and work out exactly, there's something wrong with the formula.
So you will always get unders and overs for everything. The average rates increase, that's the amount we take into the building, goes up by 12%. But depending on a variety of things, the services you're getting, how much drainage and water spending, the stuff under it's hugely complicated, but in the end, with all those unders and overs, it does add up to the right amount.
We could,
So hang on, the commercial you said is going up 15.6.
We said that one
That-
property, that individual property, which was worth
What,
630.
and what did it go up last year? Because we put the rates up 15%.
I
Have you
don't
got
have
that
the
in front of you?
differential on that particular property in front
Well,
of me,
I
no.
still think it needs further investigation into the ratios that are being used to come how these rates come about. Because it seems grossly unfair to me that there are some people are paying 25% and others are only paying 2%.
Just say something else as well, Steph. In this, the attachment that has the individual properties, I think two things would be helpful. One is to add up the extra things like waste management, water and sewer that generally urban properties pay and rural don't, and put the percentage increase against those as a subtotal, and put the percentage increase under your UAGC, your general rate. Because I think that's where, because I know in the past, sometimes your waste management's gone up, say 40%,
Yeah, I
and of
agree.
course rural don't have that, and that makes quite a difference. I kind of think that, and
So we
I
do
sorry?
that in the final document. So say in the rural, we do that in the final document that we have general rates and targeted rates. So say the rural property will have thousands in general rate and then it'll have $26.50 in targeted rates.
But you don't have the percentage increase in, well, I don't think I've seen it in the past. So, then you just put rates increase, on like on this one here, your rates increase 9%. What I'm saying is you should go general rates increase could be 13%, and targeted rates increase might be 30%, and then that's your rate increase. I know my maths is not right. but
I was
yeah.
thinking exactly the
Yeah.
same thing, and I was going to go a step further. Why do we split it by Timaru, Geraldine, Temuka, Pleasant Point? Why don't we just do residential, multi, commercial, and primary? And keep it simple, but do it more in line with that to say your generator is this.
They all have their own community works and services rate.
Doesn't matter.
Well, that's a policy.
Yeah.
So we're working on the current policy. and
Yeah,
everyone
but
comes out
but the policy still applies.
But it's the differentials,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the differentials that are applied to those properties based on where you are from those services.
Yeah.
Access
So what?
that.
Both. Because generally you have that in the document and then it's at the back, you
But-
have these example
No, but-
properties, don't you?
But remember, you're only talking about the increase, not the, so you're looking at across Timaru district, the increase for general rates is X.
As a rural ratepayer, I want to see that, like last year, you put my water rate charge up by about
Yeah, no,
30% or something.
I agree with that.
And I want to see that breakdown of the
I agree
different.
with that,
yeah.
but I don't think you need all these different locations.
But they will be different because they have different rates.
anyway, let's get
But-
ourselves, no one's going to be happy, so.
So can I just say one more thing about that
Yeah.
document though? In waste management, residential Timaru is going down. How do we melt down about that?
So with targeted rates, and this also applies to water schemes too, so although the cost to run that activity might increase slightly year on year, if you've got more people accessing that service, your portion of the pie actually goes down. It's like on a water scheme, if you get, 100 new connections, but your cost has actually only gone up less than what those additional connections are, the activity assumes that you only need that amount of money to run it, and it divides it up over the people that access it.
All the same this year, but last year they were different. I don't-
No. Let's flick to the next one. I'm conscious, how much more time do you reckon, because we've got a few workshops banking up as well, realistic to get
After this, it's really just to go through the options.
Okay, cool, keep us going.
So do you want to look at the 9%
Yeah, I think we
average?
do, yep.
Okay, cool.
That looks friendlier-ish.
So, yeah, Timaru Residential for the sample properties is the winner
Wow.
again in this round. Not to say that won't change if the budgets change and the funding needs change for those activities, the rates are the last thing to get applied. So that could all change, but at the moment with the current budget, that is how we are looking.
Alrighty, keep us going.
Cool. And then the options, which are those included in the report. So option 1, officers have put as the preferred option, so that is sticking with your 12%, taking the win on your current forecast accounting surplus, knowing that there could be some unexpected expenses next year with revaluations, etc. Depreciation is funded at 77%. Under option 1, you'll also adopt for consultation the draft fees and charges and the draft capital program. Options 2 to 4 have the different rating increases, noting that all of these would require extra work and some on the finances and also some additional work on the proposed consultation document. And option other is other.
Cool. I like the simplicity and the fact that we've pulled or focused on depreciation. That's really good. Thinking on this, team, we comfortable with preferred and as it is? Everyone? No? Yes, no? That's a no? Push the button if you'd like to talk.
I'm a no to option 1.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. No, I'm supportive.
As far as consultation we're talking about?
This is consultation.
Yeah, so you're a no on the preferred option?
Consultate, yes, correct.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Anyone else a no on the preferred option?
I'm a no too.
Yep, and thanks, Stacey. Councillor Parker?
I'm a no too. I prefer option 3. 3 is my preferred option.
Okay, is anyone with preference on the 12th? We'll just move this forward. So 12, 9...
12.
You're 12? You're 12 and 9? Okay. So we need a preferred option for council to go out to community and say, this is our preferred? Yeah.
We get to with the, what I was talking about, what action points are we going to take in regards to the proportions, and under this scenario, commercial we're going to get charged 15% and others are getting charged 9% when it's increasing by 12%.
Yeah, we can do some further analysis.
Well, honestly, I'd like to know what it's going to be, because I do not want to approve any of this knowing that other people are going to get charged more than others, and as happened last year.
So I pulled up a few in the commercial and CBD and agree that I think one got to 1.21, 21%. It was about 16% plus rubbish charge drove it to the 21%. So that's the way it sort of worked as far as the skews. So there again, it's whether it's rate or your overall funding increases. If you're only comparing rates, then often it hits the mark. But once you throw rubbish and other ones in there, then and you average it all out versus what you paid last year, that's when you get the, so I don't know, you can skin a cat a million ways.
One
Stu.
thing we
I just
could
got
do-
a quick question, sorry, on number 1. How does it go down? We charge 12% and we go accounting surplus. Sorry, bad eyesight, 2.7 million. If I'm a ratepayer, I'll be going, oh, you're charging us rates and making money. That's what it looks like when you go accounting surplus.
When we go out, we're going to concentrate on the operating deficit, which we showed you earlier.
Yeah, and I understand that, but the optics on those options, why would I pay 12%?
Yeah.
Because it looks like the council are going to make a profit on it. I'm probably option 3.
So the story we've told in the consultation document outline is basically that at 12% through all the savings we've made, yes, we are now going to be sitting, hopefully, at a 2.7 surplus next year. But here's all the things that includes that show that actually, if you look at our operating deficit, we are still in a deficit. Here's the reasons why we're not fully funding our depreciation. We've got nothing in the kitty if our depreciation goes beyond what we had planned. Yeah.
But you and I know that because we've sat round this table. It's how we portray it, though, is my problem there.
Scott? Yeah.
Yeah, there's two reasons why I want to go at 9% for the preferred option. One of them is about where we're going to end up, bottom line wise, is effectively where we were going to end up at 12%. Pretty close to anyway. And all year we've been saying, keep looking at that 12%, we've got to get that 12% down. We're not going to live with that 12%. We took a hiding out there all year, and we're going to take another hiding, which I'm not worried about as long as we're making the right decision. So the first thing is that bottom line wise, we're going to be close to what we were with the LTP at 12%, except it's potentially going to be 9%. Secondly, if we're going to be going, we can then say that if we want less than 12%, we want to land closer to the single figure. These are some of the compromises we're going to have to make, because there are going to be compromises. But to say we're still going to be 12% and these compromises is not going to sit well. I mean, I'm just forecasting with what our community is going to tell us, and we're going to use what they tell us to finalise our decision. So to me, it's got to be...
I agree. It's going to be hard with 12 if you, especially with the public nature of our change proposal, etc., and they're going to expect savings, although we know that you can't confirm any of that because it's a process that's got to go through, but people will just make an assumption, well, you've done this and you're saving this, surely we get a reduction on what you presented last time. So let's just work around the room. I know, Stacey, you are 9.
Yeah.
Ellen? 9. Yeah, that's right, you're allowed to. And I'm 9. Yeah. So we've got enough to go forward on a 9. Yeah.
Okay, so based on that, just on the recommendations in the report, I'll just bring them up on here.
Yep. And that, on option 4 there, accounting deficit unknown. I assume we're going to fill that in with something, eh?
How much depreciation are we collecting at 9?
It's on your,
66.
So what, 66% of the 42 that we should be?
Yep.
With accounting.
Yep.
Just in those documents that we're going to put out for consultation, we are going to be displaying to the public what the dollar amount is for the extra for 12% and what the dollar amount will be extra for 9%, yeah?
Yeah, so normally you would gear your consultation material towards whatever option you are going with. So in this case, we would then adjust that and use the 9% that we have basically in that spreadsheet attachment.
Okay.
Just to get some clarity, so we have some proposed financial statements and funding impact statements, which is A1 of the recommendation. We have that at 9%, so you're happy to adjust that to 9? Cool. Groups of activities funding impact statements, we can get that based on the 9% financials, so that is fine. Proposed fees and charges, are you happy to go out with what has been provided? Average 10%, some higher, some can't be changed due to legislation.
We've questioned this last year, this year, why is there no increase in the hut leases? And we questioned that at the workshop, it still come back with no increase.
Yeah, I mean, based on your order, got that one from Ellen Pagnell in regard to the Rangitata hut scheme is, I'm pretty sure it got sent to all elected members, but it was around the, interesting enough, Andrew, on that point, that's not on our website as far as one of our schemes, but if we are the owner of it and it's a user-pays schemes, then we're going to have to start hiking them because we need to do some water work out there.
Effectively, we're not gathering rates on those properties, so in my mind, the leases should be covering what we would get in rates at the very least, and going up and the leases haven't.
Yeah. No, I agree. Well, maybe that's a little bit of work needs to be done on that.
Sorry, through the chair. Yes, they are self-funding, so they do actually, we cover with the charges all of the costs associated with their occupation of that land. which is the ground lease. So we don't collect any extra other than keeping the river mouths open. So that's why they're set where they are. It's a self-funding. We do not have any rates or any funds that go towards the huts.
So my concern is that Te Mara ROI have pulled out that as a water scheme. I've always been told we run it, it's private, but we run it. But anyway, we're responsible for it, so we need to take ownership there. But if it needs investment, who pays? All those schemes a user pays. We need to probably signal some changes, I think. I know we do others, we supply water, all those sort of things, but actually, should we front foot this?
There is a significant cost in upgrading.
Yeah, I understand that, 'cause it's
maybe
not
the way forward is actually not using rates, but using metered water. So we put meters on them and they pay the charge.
Yeah. Yeah, but we should give some thinking about that, and maybe that's a discussion with Andrew L. and yourself around costs associated potentially with that. But let's move on. Sorry, OJ. And then Alan.
Sorry to have to bring this up again, but depreciation. So how do we frame to the public the difference between there being, if it's a 9% rate rise, there being 66% depreciation funded versus if it's 12%, there being 77% depreciation funded? From a layman's perspective, I think most people are just going to go, whatever. But what does that actually mean? What risk is there involved in us by not having that depreciation percentage higher?
You will borrow more money.
Correct. So we borrow more money.
Because we're running an operating deficit. That operating deficit, that cash is coming out of depreciation. So your depreciation is 43 million. And if you're running a deficit, it is using some of the cash that would otherwise go towards your CapEx from depreciation into OPEX. That's what difference is now. If we can craft that so people understand that, will be good. The other thing I've just thought of was another reason why you may go with 9% is if you looked at those savings that we gave to you, 1.4 million was for the theatre. Now, we had assumed in the LTP we'd have it open for part of the year. It isn't going to be open, so therefore there's probably about 1.5%, 1.6%. You should be taking off 12% for the theatre because at some point we will want to rate for the theatre opening. So that's a very good reason to go out at 9. Because that's just a timing issue.
Oh, so we're not paying for those costs yet because we haven't built them, but Mr. Driver seemed to think we were.
He did seem to think we were.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So so effectively, we're not rating for anything to do with the theatre at this stage.
I guess, have we actually reviewed our depreciation rates, which we are actually imposing upon ourselves? Have we actually had a thorough look at that as to ensure that we are actually doing the right thing and there's nothing that's untoward? Have we reviewed those numbers? Someone, not that's involved in every day, but there must be, obviously there's a standard set of rules and regulations around that, around percentages. That's my first thing. Depreciation, the way I understand it, is regarded as the payment for the use of now of the region's infrastructure. So therefore the ratepayer here currently, depreciation is looked upon as their consumption of the services that infrastructure provides now. So I guess to ensure we are actually doing that, we've got to know we are actually imposing the correct number, and if we're only going to be recouping 66% of the number that we're actually supposed to be doing, all we're doing is kicking the can down the road for the future ratepayer, and the current ratepayers are having the enjoyment of that service at a 34% discount.
Wow.
So it's like we shouldn't kid ourselves. I'd like, first of all, to know that we actually have got a good grip on that number that we keep talking about. And so that would be interesting to actually review that, because it's a big number, and that's the way I look at depreciation.
So we have our accounting policy, and that has the range of the life of those assets. We've revalued a number of those, and that remaining life is there. I have asked finance, is it appropriate? And they're saying yes, but you're right, potentially we should go through every one, but that's a big job because we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of assets. But when you look by category, it feels about right, but you're right, you could potentially have a damn good look at the life.
Yeah, can I just add to that? Yeah, basically, the assets that have been recently revalued and have truly reflective depreciation, which is to fund the future renewal of those assets. That's what it's about. Remember that we actually didn't start funding depreciation until the late, about 1990 anyway. So there's all that life of asset that there's never been funded for depreciation anyway. So we're always going to be in catch-up when it comes to depreciation. But the revaluation of the roading assets as well as the Three Waters assets was done by an independent valuation, and it is very carefully scrutinised by Audit New Zealand. We have to put the lives in there that is acceptable on a nationwide basis, and there is some guidelines around that. We stretch it as far as we can go. For instance, one example is there, take the base course of an unsealed road. I've said, you're never going to replace that. All we do is just keep on topping it up. So therefore, we shouldn't be depreciating that. So we've really pushed the rules there. Same with the sub-bases on, sealed roads. Again, you would never replace that. You just do an overlay. So we have been quite clever in the way we do things. But that, of course, only applies to those two assets. The other assets, of course, are all still sitting at 2005 values and 2005 depreciation. And that includes all your parks assets, your cemeteries, all your property assets, your airport. There's some significant value in those.
Look, and we are heading in the right direction. I think in the time that I've been here, we've moved from 16 to 40 odd million of depreciation funding. So in all reality, the truth would be that the previous generation got the free ride. If you look at depreciation and all the investment we're doing with loan funding, the current generation may be even, might be either way, might be twice. Hard to know. But in the interest of moving forward, and actually on that point, we were going to have a strategic conversation with Bruce, Audit and Risk Chair, and I'll make sure everyone is bought into that around renewals, depreciation, longer-term assets, revenue, etc. So we'll do that at some point, make sure everyone's available. But let's...
Quickly on depreciation, do local government New Zealand have any numbers? Because from what I hear, some councils are nil. No one's 100.
Yeah, it would be great to have. I would say it sits with audit, would be able to pull that out, surely. There'll be actually, there's probably an annual audit report. I think there is.
Which will give us a feel if we're...
Yeah.
About right.
I have read one previously that pulls different data out of all the...
I mean, Alan's right, but we just can't afford it. Ratepayers 100% depreciation, You can vacate the chair in November.
Michelle, and then we'll try and finish up.
Remember that we are renewing our assets, so, the depreciation fund. So if you don't fund depreciation, then you're going to be funding renewals by law.
Yeah.
I would sort of, as a fairly new person to local government, I'm always intrigued about this conversation about funding of depreciation. We expense 100%, we expense 100% of it, and then to say we only fund 66% of it, well actually, maybe the other costs are too far over, or maybe the revenue's too low. We're expensing 100%, so if we got those things sorted, suddenly you're funding 100%. So I don't think there's a hard and fast. While we say that, I don't believe it. Yeah. So it's actually about getting your revenue lined up, getting your expenses under control, and if you do that, and you break even, you're funding 100%, because we're expensing 100%.
Aren't at the moment if we haven't revalued our buildings.
If you revalue, but at the moment we are, because that's what we're depreciating.
What you've got to realise with depreciation is you're funding basically a long-term average. And then, you take a pipeline and it's 120-year life on it, you fund out that average. Now, of course, the pipe lasts for 80 years without actually anything worrying about it. It's when you get to the end of that life that things start to fail. But so you're theoretically depreciation, you're putting money in the bank for that future rainy day. So, that's how it works. It's a very crude
So
system.
just in summary, the important thing is to get that operating result to zero.
I want to ask about process. The consultation document, is this our last chance to provide feedback on it? Because I have quite a bit of feedback and we seem to have run out of time. So how do we manage that?
We'll change the delegation since you've changed the number here, so we'll have to make some material changes to the document now. What I'd suggest is you give us the delegation for the Mayor and the Chief Executive to sign off the document with the proviso that you're allowed to provide feedback as soon as possible, that we will try and, as I said, this was a bit of a movable feast because we've been changing the numbers in it up till the last minute.
We email all councillors and if some don't agree with what I propose, like I want to propose that we have another box on every single question we're asking, no doubt they'll feedback to that and the final delegation is with the Mayor to decide on what goes in and what goes out. Is that what you're saying?
Yep. And you will read it before it hits the press, but you won't have sign off of it.
Yeah, the other thing we've done too.
Wouldn't it be better if we got a bit of a subcommittee together and then it goes back out to all the councillors for approval? You're going to end up with 10 lots of feedback and I might not agree with Councillor Pye.
Why Mayor Bowen gets to decide.
Yep.
I think you'd be surprised you'll agree on most stuff. I think if stuff in and maybe copy all so we can peruse it as it goes through.
There's a lot of background material that sits on the website, but 99% of the consultation will be done with someone with a copy of the Courier or picked up a hard copy from the library in front of the hand, which is quite high level. I'm afraid it's you guys that have to do the deep diving and take what they say and make your decisions from there.
So that 17-page document, Steph, you want us to provide feedback to you on that?
No, so what we'll do, we'll adjust that based on the 9%, because obviously a lot of the narrative was based on a 12% scenario there, so we'll adjust that. Although it looks like 17, it looks like 17 pages, when you put it into the Courier, it ended up being about 6, because a lot of that was turned into graphics, it's not actually words. And we have also delayed the planned start date for the consultation to the 1st of May. Just based on conversations internally, we thought that maybe we may not proceed with 12, so we've given us an extra week.
Yeah, that's fine, and just squeeze it. There's not a lot in this consultation, just to make it it doesn't have to be.
Delaying by a week too also gave us the opportunity to attend the May Community Board rounds too, to give them the opportunity to feedback and discuss it in more depth.
Perfect. Now, you've sent me through a resolution. Are we able to throw that back on the screen? Is that easy enough to do? Or I can read it?
And Stephen sent us out a communications plan, like how we're going to communicate, and are we having coffees with people, or what's
annual plans are pretty light touch, so if you want to make for stuff, it's down to how clear your diaries are that we could do the Facebooks again, but it's not at the same level as the long-term plan where we're expecting the opening of an envelope sort of thing. The annual plan's basically what's in the LTP with some exceptions, so it shouldn't be that major, but the consultations isn't a formal SCP like the other one, it's just us saying this is what was in the LTP, we've changed it by this, what do you think about it at the end of the day? And then they provide that feedback. So you won't get that same level of engagement usually, probably except around the rates number, which is
we can do some basic drop-ins or something at the community service centres or libraries and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, and like the market days, they were successful.
I think the issues you were grappling were a lot bigger there, though, whereas there's not as many levers to pull this time round.
No, it's relatively simple, isn't it? Alrighty, team, so have a read. Yeah, Stace, you can see that, eh? Yeah, so recommendation 8.2, it proves through that, and if you're comfortable, if we pick that all up, we'll move that
Just
along.
note that the 12% will be amended to 9%.
Yeah.
And also that C will be edited to the Mayor and Chief Executive
Yeah.
to make changes.
Alrighty, anything further before we ask for a mover on that? Okay, so move it, changing the delegations and the number to 9. Can I have a mover? Councillor Shannon, seconder, Councillor Burt. Any further discussion? No? Put the motion now. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. I'll just note that Councillor Piddington just had to leave the room, but that he was supporting the direction of the consultation. Yeah. That is it. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate the time. Apologies we've gone over, but if you're watching online, we will be out with that soonish with the annual plan consultation. Brilliant. Thank you.